So how will the Guardians get out of this predicament, and what will be destroyed along the way? Let's find out now. Hey everyone, this is David Stark from Watcher Pass. Today I'm here to talk to you about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which is coming to theaters on May 5th, 2023. So it's the third movie in the Guardians franchise, although they have been jumping through different Marvel movies throughout, and they had a Christmas special. So this is the third canonical movie, but there have been a lot of references throughout. Is it as good as the others? Is it as enjoyable as the last ones? Well, I enjoyed it so much. I went and found my Zune from, I don't even know when I bought this, many years ago. I don't even know if it works. Let's find out together. I will plug it in here. We will see if it charges up, and then we can see what 2006-ish me was listening to. Look, it's charging. We'll give it some more time. I'm sure it'll charge up eventually, but let's keep talking about the movie. So, is it as good as the other movies? Is it worth the wait? So my hot take is, I think you should watch it. Look, it's probably the weakest Guardians movie in my view, but it is such a strong franchise that's not bad. It's still a really good movie. It's a lot of fun. It's an over-the-top adventure, and it'll make you smile, laugh, and possibly cry. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the film, a few things I liked, a few things I didn't like, and then go into the ending. So as you can imagine, in the ending, there will be spoilers. There actually will be some spoilers in the things I didn't like as much, but I will let you know when I get to spoilers. Before that, I'll keep it vague. You can keep watching, just get my thoughts. I'll let you know when I get into spoilers, and then you can choose to turn it off or keep going. So in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and so just to know, I didn't watch the Christmas special. I didn't watch it in the lead up. I watched Volume 2 before watching this one. There is a lot of stuff in the Christmas special that is referenced in this movie. So before you watch this movie, you might want to watch the Christmas special, because you can get what is happening, but if you watch the Christmas special, you will have a much better footing of everything going on. So in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, the team is on their new base of Knowhere, which, you saw the Christmas special, they traded the Collector for their base of Knowhere. It is like this giant, I think it's like a god's head, some sort of thing's head that they live in. And all the Guardians are there except for Gamora. And this includes the new Guardian, Cosmo the Space Dog, which was also, I think, from the Christmas special. So there you go. Caught you up. Now you're ready to go. So all the Guardians are at this base when it gets attacked by this strange entity that is super powerful, but also just kind of a little bit aloof. And that attack triggers something in Rocket that threatens his life and also just the overall health of the team. So what will the Guardians do? They will try to save Rocket, they'll try to save themselves, and they'll destroy a lot of stuff along the way. So things I liked about this movie. The first, it's a Guardians of the Galaxy movie. I love the music. The music is always fantastic in the Guardians of the Galaxy. It is like a mix of classic tunes. It's used perfectly to set the tone. It's used perfectly to kind of like lighten up some scenes that could be a little bit more serious. And in this movie, there are some callbacks to the earlier movies. You get a good playlist overall, but you get a lot of like the classics that were in the first two movies. Some of them make appearances here, and it's always fun to hear them back in this new scenario. Still charging. I'll let you know. The second thing I love is the comedy. It's a funny movie. It is the Guardians of the Galaxy that are supposed to be a little bit more lighthearted, and they are. There's a lot of fun banter. There's a lot of silly comments. Drax especially is kind of on another level in this movie. He is very, very funny with all of the weird things that he says. It is not as funny, I think, as the past movies. It feels like the moments of comedy kind of were a little bit less, and that's because I think this movie tried to go a little bit more on the heart side, a little bit more on the kind of like serious tone in some respects. But that being said, there's still plenty of funny moments, and you will definitely be laughing during this movie. The third thing I liked is there's some really good action. There's especially one scene kind of towards the middle when the team is all fighting together, and it's just a lot of fun to kind of see them all working together. They're just so in sync, and of course during this time there's some fun music that's playing, but the action scenes are all CG, which is normally one of my pet peeves, but it's a Marvel movie. The CG is really well done, and the action in this is definitely fun, definitely over the top, definitely going to keep you entertained. The fourth thing I liked is the cast. Look, the Guardians of the Galaxy has a fantastic cast, and this is no exception. Pretty much everyone comes back, and they have some fun new additions in Will Poulter's character, and some fun cameos from people we met along the way, and a fun cameo from some nerd favorites as well. So if you like the cast, you like these characters, you're going to love this movie. And the last thing I loved is, look, it's ridiculous. I like the Guardians of the Galaxy because it's almost like a nice palate cleanser. It's just a ridiculous, over-the-top film. It doesn't have a ton of, I don't know, kind of weight of the rest of the Marvel Universe in those movies. They tend to be their own self-contained adventures that have references to other movies, but by and large, you can just watch it and enjoy it and just kind of be along for the ride. And this is no exception. It is an over-the-top movie. It is a ridiculous movie. There's crazy, crazy things that happen. And you'll be laughing and smiling along the way. So I liked all those things. I did say it's, in my opinion, the weakest of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. So things I didn't love as much. The first, it's a little bit too long. The film's adventure is trying to be epic, and it is, but it feels like the film could have been cut by like 15 or 20 minutes. There are some scenes that seem unnecessary. There's like an entire scenario that just didn't really contribute that much to the overall film, and it just feels like they could have trimmed some of the fat and got it to be a little bit lighter. It's a 2 hour and 30-minute movie. I was never really bored, but it did definitely feel like this adventure went on a little bit too long. The second thing I didn't love, and I will warn you, there will be some minor spoilers here. So if you don't want to know what happens, I would turn it off now. This is just gonna be a minor spoiler. But the second thing I didn't love is the antagonist. He was interesting at the start. I kind of liked his, strange, over-the-top personality, but as the film went on, he became more and more, I don't know, deranged, more and more kind of extra, I guess would be a word that the kids would use these days. And I lost interest in him towards the end. It almost felt like he went too far on one end. You're supposed to not like him. You already don't like him by the middle of the movie, and then he just kind of keeps going further and further. So I felt like they could have dialed it back more, maybe made him a little bit more of a sympathetic character, but they didn't do that. They went all in, and he didn't become that interesting to me towards the end. And the last thing I didn't love, and this will be a big spoiler, so if you don't want to know what happens in this film, turn it off now. This will be a spoiler. So the last thing I didn't love is there are no consequences for the Guardians of the Galaxy. I say that with a grain of salt because I love all these characters and I don't want any of them to leave, but it feels like, given the amount of craziness that happens, the amount of ridiculousness that happens, at some point, one of these characters probably would have met its end, and they always come up with a convenient excuse. Groot, I think, has died like 2 times, and he's always grown back. In this movie, there are a couple characters that seem to die, but they always seem to come back. And so, as much as I love these characters and I love the film, it does feel a little hollow when they are up against these insane odds, and literally there's no consequences to them. So, that being said, I did really like the movie. It's a Guardians of the Galaxy movie. It's fun, it's enjoyable, it's crazy. If you like the previous movies, you'll like this one as well. It's coming to theaters on May 5th, 2023. I'm going to get into the ending. So, look, I already warned you about spoilers. There will be more spoilers in this. So if you don't want to know what happens in the film, I would turn it off now and just go see Guardians of the Galaxy when it comes to theaters on May 5th, 2023. So, and it's still charging. This old technology, not the fastest. Oh, hey, look. The Zune logo. Huh, it's loading up. It still works. Let's see what happens. I might have to speed this up. What do we have? Music, videos, pictures, social, radios, podcast. All right, let's see what music I've got. Oh, you can't see any of that. Can you? No, well, it instantly went to my favorite band at the time, Parabel. So I definitely have been listening to this recently. The last song I apparently listened to, oh, okay, it doesn't tell me which one, but I was listening to Parabel back in whenever the last time I used this Zune. It is still a really fun device. I kind of like it. Maybe I'll charge this back up and keep using it. I have a lot of music on here. Let me see if I can get... okay, I can't do anything by year. Can't do anything by year. So I can just do artists, albums, genres, and songs. Let's see how big this thing was. Settings. So this has 27.26 gigabytes used, 0.53 gigabytes free. So there's a 30 gigabyte Zune, 4,333 songs. So there you go. That's my Zune. It came up and it still works. What an amazing device. You should get one too when you watch Guardians of the Galaxy. All right, now going into the ending. So this film centers mostly around Rocket. Rocket is the big kind of like backstory in this movie. It's the big draw. Like I said, at the start, the Guardians are all in Knowhere. Peter is just not doing well. He is missing Gamora. Remember Gamora after, I think, Endgame, probably? She came back. She was the only one that like came back who was killed by Thanos, but it was like a past version of her, so she didn't remember everything that had happened in the Guardians of the Galaxy. So she remembered Peter, she remembered the relationship. She was still kind of like angry Gamora. So she doesn't know Peter at all. He is still madly in love with her. So now he is just drunk all the time, apparently. He is depressed. We see him in Knowhere just like pass out on the table drinking. He is not doing well. And the rest of the Guardians are trying to kind of like build a life on this floating space head thing. So all's fine. Everything seems to be going okay. And then they get attacked by this golden thing that looks kind of like Captain Marvel, but not. It is a super powerful character. Think like Superman if he was gold and also just a little bit aloof and didn't really understand what was going on. That's what this was. They all fight him. He easily handles most of the Guardians, but eventually Nebula stabs him with like her bionic arm knife. He's like, ow, that hurts. And then he instantly runs away. But during this time, Rocket was injured during the fight. And then we find out that Rocket has some sort of like kill switch in his heart. Where it's never come up until now, but that's fine. We'll keep going. Rocket has something on his heart that is like acting as a like a kill switch or a like last resort to protect the technology that is in Rocket that makes Rocket able to do the things he's able to do. So it seems like when this thing got close to him, it activated the kill switch, and Rocket is not in a good place. They think they have about 48 hours for him before the kill switch fully takes control, so they have to figure out what to do quickly. They scan him, and they find out where his like cybernetics were made. It's this company called like Orgoscope, something like that. It's a biological company. And so they figure his file will be there. Maybe the kind of disarm code for the kill switch will be there. So the Guardians shoot off to go and find this. Now, also during this time, you have flashbacks of what happened to Rocket and what made Rocket who he is. And you see he was like picked from this like vat of baby raccoons. And then they did experiments on him. They modified him. They replaced things in him. They kind of fully redid him into this like hybrid cybernetic animal creature. And then they threw him in a pen with some other cybernetic animal creatures. There is an otter with like robot arms. There's a walrus that has like wheels. There is a horrible but very cute rabbit that has like spider legs, like robotic spider legs. And then there's Rocket. And these are the other animals that I guess they're experimenting on in wherever he is. So when they get to, I think it was called Orthoscope, something like that, they get close to this building. And once they're close to this like base headquarters, all these Ravagers pop in, and you're like, ooh, they probably should have done this maybe a little bit farther out. The Ravagers come in, they give them the equipment that they need to break into this facility. But again, they're like through 3 levels of shields. The facility probably would have seen them, and now all these like spaceships are coming in, and then at least a couple of spaceships are there, and then all these like Ravagers are coming to this small ship that is just like right on the perimeter of this facility's area. So they probably should have done it a little bit further out, but it makes for a nice transition scene. The Ravagers, including Gamora, who decides to come help them because she's getting paid. It's not for Peter. It's because she's getting paid. They give them the equipment they need to get onto this facility. And this facility is like a giant, like organic space building. So it's like made of flesh, and it looks kind of like a giant anus, essentially. Or maybe like an intestine. We'll go with that. So they get the equipment, they get onto this ship, and while they're there, they try to sneak in and get Rocket's file. Now, as you can imagine, with the Guardians of the Galaxy, it's a nice plan. It doesn't go that way. They eventually have to kind of like fight their way out. I really loved this facility because it had this like really organic look. Like it looked like everything was grown. So like everything had like a gross bodily sound. Like the elevators had like goo, the armor looked like it was like grown onto them, it was like bigger, and like everything had this kind of natural feel to it, which I thought was really creative, and it looked really interesting. And this facility had one of the guards as Nathan Fillion, who I love. Nathan Fillion, he's a nerd icon, so it was really fun to see him in this film as well. So they eventually get the file after destroying a lot of stuff. But the one thing the file is missing is the disarm code for Rocket's kill switch. It is just a chunk that's missing. They find out who accessed it, and it was one of these like servants of this thing called the High Evolutionary. And that is this entity that is trying to kind of like perfect beings, which is what he was doing to Rocket and those other cursed animals, by adding cybernetics, adding things to them, making them kind of stronger, faster, better. He's trying to perfect beings to create like a perfect world. So one of his experiments was Rocket, and now and so one of his like henchmen, I guess, people download the disarm code for Rocket's kill switch into his like face computer. So now the Guardians have to find him. They track this character and the High Evolutionary to this outer planet, and so they make the jump. They head over there, and when they get there, the planet looks a lot like Earth, and it's called Counter Earth, I believe. So during this time, we also get some more flashbacks. We find out that these cursed animals become like Rocket's close friends. The otter, and they all like talk about how they're going to this new world. They all talk about how the High Evolutionary is like making them better so they can go to this new world. And they all pick names. The otter is Lila. The walrus, because he's got giant teeth, is Teeth. The bunny, because the bunny is lying on the floor at the moment, is Floor. It's very cute, also horrible. And the raccoon, because he wants to make great machines fly, is Rocket. So we also find out that the High Evolutionary is now doing some different experiments on animals, and Rocket helps him out with this to speed the process along. And he impresses the High Evolutionary because he sees something that no one else in the room did, and like figures out how to fix this process. That allows this process to then create hybrid super animals, basically animals that are going to be like evolved into like sentient animals that are going to be like evolved into like sentient thinking animal creatures without any consequences. And so the High Evolutionary wants to understand how Rocket was able to do this, but we also find out that Rocket and his friends are not actually going to the new world. That was just something the High Evolutionary said. He was studying them and then used what he learned from them to make the next batch of animal hybrid. And eventually, once he found the right batch of animals, those would go to the new world. But unfortunately for Rocket and his friends, they are not. As you can imagine, Rocket is upset when he finds this information. He tries to escape and he convinces his friends to escape. But when they do, the High Evolutionary is ready for them. He kills the other friends. Rocket is able to kind of take out the guards, maul the High Evolutionary, and escape the facility in a ship. And that's where Rocket kind of like got his freedom, but also where he lost his friends. So now, back on Earth. It looks like Earth, but it looks like 1980s Earth, and it looks like all the inhabitants were contestants on Sexy Beast. If you haven't seen Sexy Beast, it is a wonderful and terrible dating show on Netflix. Here's a picture. They all look kind of like this. So when they get to this place, they find out that the High Evolutionary is in this giant like pyramid thing. And so Peter and Groot and Nebula go to that, while Mantis, Drax, and Gamora stay back and watch Rocket, who is fading quickly, and so they really need to find that code. A whole lot of bad stuff happens. Star-Lord and Groot get into this facility. They find the High Evolutionary, and while they're there, we find out the High Evolutionary's plan is going to make the next batch of animals. Peter points out that this world is no different from Earth. It has a lot of the flaws. He saw some like fighting, he saw some graffiti, he saw some drugs. So it's, even though the High Evolutionary is trying to create this perfect world, this seems no different from Earth. And the High Evolutionary is like, you're right. That's why we're going to start anew. And that's when the planet starts kind of blowing up. Like, I don't know, because he set bombs everywhere or something. So places around the planet start blowing up, including the area around where Gamora's ship is. And unfortunately for the weird Captain Marvel looking guy named Adam, his mother, the like golden sovereign lady from the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and who shows up in this one, is blown up as well. So he is not very happy about this. He is very upset. He was trying to get Rocket back for the High Evolutionary because he thought that would save his people. The High Evolutionary created the Sovereigns, and so he also could destroy them. And so Adam has been trying to get Rocket back to the High Evolutionary to gain favor and make sure his people are okay. But because his mother and him were on the planet when things started blowing up, his mother is blown up, and Adam is hurt but still there. Now, up in the pyramid with the High Evolutionary, you've got Star-Lord and Groot talking to him, and that's when they realize that this place is going to blow up, and the pyramid thing that they're in is starting to take off. That doesn't sit well with Peter and Groot. Groot snuck in some weapons. They take them out. They start taking out everyone in this facility, and then they find the one guy that had Rocket's code downloaded, and they basically they grab him and jump off of the pyramid thing as it's flying away. They got to get back to Rocket. So they get him. Star-Lord's falling. Groot goes behind him, grabs him, grows like wing branches things, and like glides down to Earth. Not very gracefully. Luckily, they have this scientist lackey of the High Evolutionary under them, and so he breaks their fall. It also breaks him, but they don't need him. They just need the computer in his head. So once they're on the ground, they get the computer out and head back to Rocket. So they get to Rocket as he's not doing very well, and you see Rocket in a like heaven-like scene where he sees his animal friends. He's talking to Lila. He sees Teeth and Floor. He wants to go play with them. He seems pretty happy, and he's about to go, and he flatlines in Counter Earth. But as he's gonna go play with them, Lila says, "No, it's not time." And that's when he comes back. The code downloads. His kill switch gets disengaged. They're able to revive him, and Rocket is back with his other friends. Not his first animal friends, his Guardian of the Galaxy friends. So while all this was happening, Nebula was outside the ship, and Drax and Mantis ended up going to help her, even though she told them not to. Drax had a mind of his own. He went over there. And so when the ship started taking off and things started blowing up on the planet, Nebula, Drax, and Mantis all got on the ship. They are now on the High Evolutionary ship, while Gamora, Star-Lord, Groot, and Rocket are on their ship. And so now we have to come up with a plan to rescue Drax, Mantis, and Nebula from the High Evolutionary ship. They come up with it. It involves Knowhere, their home planet, kind of jumping in right next to the High Evolutionary, having a gun come out from the eye socket of the skull thing and shooting a hole into the High Evolutionary ship, where everyone can go in and start to try to rescue Nebula, Mantis, and Rocket, and also destroy the High Evolutionary, because he is a bad person. We also find out why the High Evolutionary wants Rocket so badly. Of all the things he's created, Rocket's the only one that's able to do kind of independent thought. The other ones are able to kind of like do memorization and regurgitate stuff, but Rocket's the only one that was able to do something independently when he kind of fixed their evolutionary process. So the High Evolutionary really wants Rocket to study his brain, but not while he's alive. He's just basically going to cut out Rocket's brain, figure out what is happening in there, and then use that in his next evolution. So now we have a big kind of space battle where the Guardians of the Galaxy are fighting the High Evolutionaries soldiers. He's got normal soldiers. He's got these things called like Hellspawn that just look kind of like crazy beasts. He has probably past failed experiments that he's just using, these like hybrid animal things that look kind of like they're straight out of Doom. And we're all fighting. Everything is going well. And this is when you have that really good fighting scene I liked. You've got basically the entire Guardians of the Galaxy against a room full of the High Evolutionaries soldiers, and they just are in sync so well. It's really fun to kind of see them, like the camera will pan to different Guardians as they're taking out things. It's a lot of fun to see. It is fast. It is intricate. It is in slow motion a lot of times, so you can really get the details in, and it is fun to watch kind of how each of them fight and how they work together as a team. But once they are all together and that everyone has been rescued, the team is back together. So they are wondering if they're going to flee or if they're going to save all the things that are on the High Evolutionary ship. We find out that in the basement, I guess, there's a ton of kids for some reason. And so some of the Guardians want to leave. Some of them want to stay and help the kids. Rocket says, "I'm done running. Like, let's take this out and let's save everyone." And everyone gets behind him. And this is fun because like once Rocket decides this, all the Guardians, even the ones that wanted to leave, all kind of get in line and help out. And then Gamora also, even though she really wanted to leave, gets in line too. So they have to save these kids. They have to kind of like take out the High Evolutionary. But during this, the High Evolutionary is like throwing more and more. He is obsessed with getting Rocket. He's obsessed with figuring out what's going on. And he's basically willing to sacrifice everything to do that. He like destroys his whole like command area because he got upset with them because they tried to like mutiny and stop him from basically killing them all. And so he destroys that, kills everyone there. And he sends more and more horrible things at the Guardians of the Galaxy and at Knowhere. So everyone's fighting off all these different things. So after they've kind of gathered enough people and killed enough of the High Evolutionaries guards, they put Knowhere right up against the High Evolutionary ship so that everyone can cross over between the ships, and they do this by like flying right up next to it, and then Cosmos, the psychic dog, uses its telekinetic powers to keep them together, and that's when they start moving people off. They move the kids, they move Adam, who is on the ship. He gets hurt and he collapses during one of the fights, and Drax actually takes him off. Adam is like wondering like why. Adam wakes up, he's like, why'd you save me? And Drax is like, because everyone deserves a second chance, which is nice. And Adam was misguided. He was trying to get Rocket, but he also didn't know much better. They save the kids, they save all the people in the High Evolutionary who don't want to fight anymore. They come as well. So after they save everyone, they're wondering, where's Rocket? Where's Rocket? And we see Rocket going to look at where the animals are stored. He goes up to one cage that has a bunch of little baby raccoons, and he looks on the label, and it says raccoon. So he's actually a raccoon. He's been denying it a little bit. It says, I'm not a raccoon. He was a raccoon, and he starts saving the animals. But while he's doing this, the High Evolutionary tries to capture him. Rocket, the High Evolutionary uses his like telekinetic powers to throw Rocket in the air, but Rocket has these gravity boots on, so he's not phased. He turns on the gravity boots, which get him back down on the ground, and then Rocket pulls out a gun and shoots the High Evolutionary many, many times. And then the rest of the Guardians show up, and everyone kind of has their turn beating up the High Evolutionary. They end up almost killing him, and Gamora stabs him and then pulls off this like face flap that he had. He had like essentially a face skin stretched over him, and we get to see his true face, which is the face that was mauled when Rocket escaped. And it looks horrible. It looks like kind of like if Two-Face had a full face, like if his like horrible eye socket face was his entire face, or if like Red Skull looked more terrible. That's what he looks like. So Rocket is about to kill him, and then he stops, and he said, they ask, why didn't you kill him? And he says, because I'm a freaking guardian of the galaxy. So the High Evolutionary isn't killed. They get all the animals off, Noah's Ark style. Like everyone comes. I don't know if there's two of everyone, but there's a lot of animals now on Knowhere. I guess it'll be fun to see how this all works together. And Star-Lord is also running, but he drops his Zune. He drops his Zune on the way, and you wouldn't want to lose this. This is some fantastic technology. So he turns around and runs back to grab it, grabs it, and does this really cool thing where he gets like an air pipe and covers it up, jumps off the ship as it's exploding, shoots the air forward, tries to propel himself onto the other ship. And just know he's in space. As soon as he's in space, I'm pretty sure he would freeze completely and die. But that wouldn't be a very good movie. So he's flying towards it, but he hits some debris on the way, which stops him. And so he stops his momentum. He's kind of floating in space, and he starts to freeze. And so he freezes, his face like contorts. He's out in space. You think he's dead. He kind of stops like he's dead, and the camera pans to his finger that is like pointing out. And then you see Adam, the kind of gold Captain Marvel looking guy that was trying to kill them, trying to get Rocket. But Drax saved him when he was hurt. Adam is there with his other finger. And so you see the camera pans to Star-Lord's finger, and Adam's finger is there. And they touch very Sistine Chapel-like. And then Adam picks him up and flies to the Knowhere space station. He's fine, even though he was in space and like completely frozen and probably should have been dead. He's fine. Everyone gathers around him. All the Guardians kind of like embrace him because he's alive. And that's the main movie. Now, we find out after that Gamora is not going to stay with them. She goes back to her ship. She goes back to the Ravagers. But before, she kind of acknowledges that she had fun with Peter. She says, I'm still not who you want me to be. Peter looks at her and he says, I know, but who you are ain't so bad. And as she's leaving, she looks at him and says, I bet we were fun. And Peter said, like you wouldn't believe. So she's warming to him. I don't think the relationship will ever actually happen. At least she acknowledges that maybe there was something there in some other life. So Gamora heads back, but now we get some big revelation. So Star-Lord also says he's got to leave. He needs to kind of like, he said he's been like jumping around too much and he needs to learn how to swim. It's a reference to an earlier thing where he was upset about Gamora and they were trying to tell him like he needs to be able to be happy on his own without like being tied to someone. He is kind of acknowledging that. So he wants to go back to Earth and, figure out who he is and figure out where he's from. And Mantis also wants to leave. She says that she needs to be on her own. She was first kind of like Ego's person, like she was first taking orders from Ego, and then she was taking orders from the Guardians of the Galaxy. She's having a lot of fun, but she wants to figure out who she is on her own. So she is also leaving. So the Guardians are breaking up, and you think, uh-oh, like what's going to happen? That's when Star-Lord like makes Rocket the leader. He gives him the Zune, the wonderful technology. And so now Rocket is the leader of the Guardians of the Galaxy with the remaining Guardians as well. And after this, when in this sad, like bittersweet moment, Groot looks at everyone and says, I love you guys. Like Groot's voice says, I love you guys. So either Groot is learning to talk, which I don't think is what it is, or we have spent enough time with Groot that we are now able to understand his language, his I am Groot. And so we get to hear him say, I am Groot, but we understand what it is. That's what I think happened. I don't think Groot's learning how to talk, but maybe he is. So now we have kind of an update. Most of the Guardians are still on Knowhere, and Rocket is looking at the Zune, the wonderful Zune that Peter gave him, and he starts playing some music on the speakers in Knowhere, and people start dancing. So even though it's kind of a sad ending, everyone starts dancing, everyone's happy, and all the people that are on there kind of start dancing and having a good time. Even Drax starts dancing. Now, Star-Lord goes back to Earth, and he finds his grandpa. He hadn't seen his grandpa since he'd left Earth after his mother died. And so he goes back to see his grandpa. His grandpa instantly recognizes him, is very excited. And so now Star-Lord is spending some time with some family. And before this dancing scene happened, Mantis leaves with some giant like beast that she picked up from the High Evolutionaries area. So Mantis is going to be on her own. Star-Lord's going to be on his own. Gamora's with the Ravagers, and the rest of the Guardians are on Knowhere. So that's the movie. It ends with everyone dancing, with everyone kind of happy. It's like a bittersweet ending, but it's still fun. And then, of course, there's post-credit scenes because it's a Marvel movie. So we see the new look Guardians. You've got Rocket, who's the leader. You've got Kraglin, the new guy with the fin, who learns how to control the arrow thing during this movie. You've got one of the kids who I don't know who she is, but she's there. You've got Adam, the gold Captain Marvel looking guy. And you've got Cosmos, the space dog. And you also have Groot. They're on this kind of desert island, defending these people against these like wild, look kind of like hairless cat things that are attacking them. So the Guardians of the Galaxy are still together. It's a different look. And so they are still there. You also get another post-credit scene of Star-Lord back at his grandpa's house. He is eating cereal with his grandpa at breakfast. His grandpa's reading the newspaper. In the newspaper, there is a story about how Kevin Bacon was kidnapped by aliens and how he's telling all. So that is a tie-in to the Christmas special. Star-Lord is kind of arguing about having to do some chores. It is a fun scene because he is like kind of back on Earth with his family. And then you get this text on the screen that says the legendary Star-Lord will return. So there will be more, at least, appearances of Chris Pratt. Probably, maybe in his own separate movie. I don't know. I don't know where it goes from here. I feel like this was a movie where they needed to kind of like break up the team so they can either make appearances in other movies, like as cameos, or maybe have a less expensive spin-off series with the new team that is probably less expensive to make than the one with Chris Pratt and Zoe Saldana. Now they've got I didn't see Drax actually in the Guardians update scene, so I don't know why he wasn't there. Maybe he stayed on Knowhere with the kids. The Drax had a really good affinity with the kids, so maybe he stayed there. It feels like maybe Marvel wanted to make the Guardians of the Galaxy team a little bit cheaper to make a movie for. I don't know. And then maybe also allow Chris Pratt to have his own movie, and maybe it's easier for them to have cameos in the future Marvel Universe movies. They don't have to like have the whole Guardians team. Now they can have maybe a smaller group. I don't know. I think they'll be back. I think they'll be back in some form. And whatever way they're back, I will enjoy it because I do like this series a lot. And that's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. It's coming to theaters on May 5th, 2023. So you can check it out then. I definitely think you should watch it. And thanks so much for watching. If you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. And if you see the movie, let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree. And let me know what's on your Zune playlist. If you have a Zune, let me know what you've got. So thanks so much. Take care.